I'll tell you a pretty sad story that happened to me. I hope this never happens to anyone else. But maybe my story can help you if it does. My wife was invited to a company ball. It was really fancy, so ballroom attire was required. 2 weeks prior to the ball, she started to get really anxious about everything. She even asked me if I was sure I wanted to go. She said if I would rather stay home and relax, that would be fine. She usually begged me to go places with her, and if I insisted on staying home, that she gave me a list of chores to do. The fact that she offered me the idea of relaxation was weird. I told her I was going, and she could relax about it when it got close to the day of the ball. Woof woof woof. Woof woof. We were in the car at one point, and her phone connected to the Bluetooth, and she freaked out. She started pushing the power button a few times. Woof 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 woof. It was so worrisome. What was she so paranoid about me seeing? She went into the store and couldn't have been too paranoid, because her phone was laying on her seat. I decided to look through it. I didn't find anything interesting in the texts, so I checked her email, and an opened email said she had test results to see on her doctor's website. I looked and it was a test result, positive for an incurable STD. I could not believe what I was reading and the magnitude of what I just found. I wondered if she was planning to tell me anytime soon. We hadn't had sex in 3 months, the longest we ever went. These results were dated from 4 days ago. Did I have what she had? My mind was reeling when my wife started running back to the car with groceries. I thought I had enough time to check one more thing. I did a search in her apps for WhatsApp, and boom, she had it. I opened it and saw a string of texts to a man named Michael. The only Michael I knew she was associated with was her boss. I locked her phone and put it on her seat. She got in the car and was relieved to see her phone. She said she wasn't sure if she dropped it and looked at me closely for a few seconds while she tried to figure out if I looked through it. I put on my best poker face and drove us home. We arrived at the ball before I had another chance to check her phone. I didn't sleep with her, and I didn't ask her anything. I wanted to know when she was planning to tell me this terrible news. I already considered the possibility of her cheating on me, because I didn't think I had the same thing she did, but I couldn't know for sure until I got tested. Why, unless she was cheating on me, would she hesitate to tell me this diagnosis? All of this was going through my head as we entered the ball. We had seats at a table, which is where my wife set down her little handheld purse. I thought about trying to sneak a peek at her phone. We were greeted by her boss personally. He kissed my wife's hand and told her he was so glad she was there. She introduced me to him unenthusiastically, and he greeted me with the same level of dismissal. He asked me if he could have the first dance with my lovely wife, and I felt like I didn't have a choice. Besides, I wanted to look at my wife's phone while she danced with him. It looks like they were whispering to themselves. It was weird, and I had just about enough. I started looking through my wife's phone without any care if she saw me. I opened her WhatsApp and discovered that Michael confirmed precisely what time he would get here, and scrolling up just a bit more showed that they planned to sneak away. As soon as I went to the bathroom or stepped outside for a smoke, I looked up at them in shock. They were at the bar getting drinks now. I looked through more of her messages with him, talking about the sex they've had and how they want to have it again. My wife even mentioned her recent diagnosis to him, and he apologized for not telling her about it. She freaked out over text, asking him how she was supposed to tell her husband she suddenly had an incurable STD after 7 years of marriage. He offered that perhaps she wouldn't ever need to tell me if she just left me for him. I took screenshots of it all and sent the collection to my phone. Then I used her phone to post it all on her social media platforms. She was friends with people all over this ballroom. I saw people looking at their phones, gasping, and then looking up to find my wife or the boss. I included a few messages of slander towards their co-workers and employees. I watched someone urgently alert the boss to a problem, and he left the ballroom to talk about it. My wife was left alone, so she started walking back towards our table. She looked extremely uncomfortable, like she noticed something was wrong, and people were staring at her. I stared at her too, fake smiling with my hands folded in front of me. She greeted me skeptically. I simply said, "I'm going to file for divorce because you are no longer my wife." Her jaw dropped and she sat next to me, asking me what was going on. I handed her back her phone and told her to check what she posted a few minutes ago. She was really confused and looked at me like I wasn't making sense. When she opened her phone, I saw the moment of agony show up on her face. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, her hand covering her mouth. She realized her boss was most likely fired, which meant she would be fired. She realized everyone in the room was staring at her because they now knew, officially not speculating, that she was sleeping with the boss and both of them had an STD. How despicable and disgusting. She ugly cried while she grabbed her stuff and left the hotel, heading for my car. I followed her slowly, nodding an acknowledgement to every person that hired me up. I had the keys in my pocket, and I was not giving her a ride to my house. When I got to the car, she was standing there with her arms crossed. I asked her what she thought she was doing. She said she wanted to get in the car and go home. I asked her if she met her parents' house or her boss' house. She looked at me, shocked and upset. She asked me not to do this and said I couldn't be serious. I said I would show her how serious I was, that she was never coming back to my house or getting in my car again. I unlocked my door, only got in, and locked it again. She was screaming at me to let her in, but it quickly turned to desperate sobbing. A crowd gathered outside the hotel, watching us by her car. They all knew she was the one sleeping with the boss. She was the one with the STD. She gave up on trying to get in the car with me and opted for sprinting into the woods, lining the parking lot. I drove home. I didn't care what happened to her anymore. I scheduled the doctor's appointment the next day. It was 3 days later that I got back my test results, which thankfully said I was clean. I also heard my ex's boss was fired. As soon as her boss got an opportunity to sneak away from the intense scrutiny he faced, he packed his bags and left on the way. He stopped to pick up my ex. They haven't returned to town since then. I put all my ex's belongings outside, between two tarps. That was more consideration than she ever gave me. However, she never returned for it. My most helpful support through the breakup was my dog. Also heard my ex was dumped by Michael after 5 months WAP. What a glamorous place to discover the disturbing secrets your wife hid from you. It was lucky that she put down her phone so you could expose their infidelity and shameful behavior to everyone they associated with. It's so lucky you didn't sleep with her before discovering the truth. It's also lucky you were tricked into raising an affair child. She behaved like a succubus, probably choosing to sleep with her boss because he was wealthy. A woman that does this can never be trusted. She doesn't have the right values in life and probably never will unless she's humbled by the challenges of life. It sounds like she definitely went through some hardships brought on by her actions. I wish you nothing but the best of luck in life. Now let's get into today's second story. My girlfriend, 22, had a job babysitting for this one really nice family we both knew from church. They were wealthy, so spending time in their house wasn't really a chore. To make things even better, their younger kids were really well behaved and went to sleep easily. She had me, 25, come over a few times while she was babysitting, and the kids were in bed. We never did the hokey pokey or anything, although it felt like we could have gotten away with it. This family had an older son named John. He was 18. But they didn't usually have him babysit because he was always up to something or at hockey practice. One time while she was babysitting, my girlfriend randomly stopped responding to my texts. I thought something was seriously wrong. She already told me the kids were asleep, but I guessed there was a small chance one of them woke up again. I waited an hour and didn't hear anything. I decided to drive over there to check it out. At first nothing appeared to be wrong. No flashing police lights or anything scary like that. I walked up the path to the front door and noticed an odd movement through the window. I cupped my hands on my face to see into the living room through a tiny gap in the blinds. I was shocked to see John having sex with my girlfriend. I turned away and trying to open the front door, but it was locked. Just then a car pulled into the driveway in a hurry. It barely stopped before the door opened and John's dad jumped out. I put my hands up instinctually and said, "I just got here." John's dad paid me no mind at all. He just rushed to the front door and unlocked it in a hurry. He barged in, followed by John's mom, asking what the hell they thought they were doing. My girlfriend screamed and John yelled. His dad told him to get out of the house. He was not allowed to have unprotected premarital sex in her home, with his younger siblings asleep upstairs. He asked them how terrible it would have been if the kids came downstairs and found them having sex. He looked to my girlfriend, who had only managed to get her underwear back on, and told her she was supposed to be the responsible adult in this situation, and she failed miserably. It was then that my girlfriend noticed I was standing in the doorway. She burst into tears and put the rest of her clothes on. She apologized sincerely to John's dad, mum, and me before she got in her car and left. I realized I had no place there, now that my cheating girlfriend left the scene. Just as I was about to leave, John's mom followed me outside, closing the front door behind her to muffle the yelling between John and his dad. She apologized to me for what I was going through. She reminded me that the end of one relationship doesn't have to be the end of the world. I thanked her and asked how they knew what was happening at the house. She said they had a hidden camera in the living room that connected to their cell phones. They'd see me every time I was at their house, but since they knew I was a well-behaved man, they didn't mind me hanging out with my girlfriend. They actually felt their kids were safer when I was there too. I told my parents everything that happened. I lived on my own at this point, but I needed their support. They told me I didn't need to ever speak to my girlfriend again. She proved herself unfit to be a wife just then. She called me. She told me she would never make this mistake again. I believed her, but that didn't mean I wanted her back. I asked her why she did it and what happened. She just told me that after John came home, he started talking with her and after a while, asked point blank if she wanted to have sex. She gave in, not really thinking hard about it. It hurt to hear that. How could she just not think about it? She gave in to her primal instincts with little resistance, assuming she wouldn't get caught. It was so unfair to me, her loving boyfriend. I was loyal to her, even when a woman from my job came on to me. Well, that phone call was all I needed to officially decide I wasn't going to stay with her anymore. I told her on the same phone call, "All right, well, it was nice knowing you, but our time together has come to an end. I wish you the best," and hung up. It wasn't very long until she tried to call me again. Several times, but I never answered. John's parents had told my ex's parents and the church that they caught her having sex in their house while she was supposed to be babysitting. I didn't keep up with my ex since, but heard she moved out of town. I am so sorry you went through the worry and panic and found your girlfriend cheating. It's a shame she didn't treat that family, you and herself, with more respect. It doesn't sound like she's mature enough for a serious relationship or job. You made the right decision to seek support and leave her. A good partner would never do anything to jeopardize their relationship, even if supposedly no one is watching. I wish you the best of luck going forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.